Hello, and welcome to Unlocking Health with Dr. Lexi. And today I'm here with Alison Leithseier, and she's an alternative practitioner, and she really focuses quite a bit on integrative manual therapies. Alison, I'm thrilled to have you here today. You have a fantastic story that I would love for everyone to hear. So why don't we hop in? You were telling me that you had a viral infection when you were 16. What happened with that?
I did. I had backing up a little bit. I actually had mono a couple of times badly, and I sometimes will hear people talk about mono and like they went with their daily life. That wasn't like my experience, where I like barely get out of bed, and it was months. So I had a very bad case, and so I think my immune system was compromised, already. And I do suspect that I had like chronic Lyme disease as well. So that was sort of like the foundation of what happened. And then I was a gymnast and a pole vaulter, and I was very active, and I pushed myself very hard in high school. And I had some very bad injuries to my neck. And I then began to have this feeling of having mono again, where I was like very exhausted all the time. I was catching every cold that was coming around. And then I started falling a lot, like my legs were giving way, and I needed help like walking to the bathroom. And then it just slowly degraded over that. And over time, over about a period of a month, where I wasn't walking anymore. And then I wasn't able to sit up anymore. And then I was like, wow, I'm not moving. I was like fully quadriplegic. I couldn't move my head. I couldn't, move my hands or my feet. I always had control of my bowel and bladder, which was weird, but I had a horrific level of pain. And I was also having seizures, and the virus was like digesting my nervous system, and
oh my goodness,
having some organ failure. So it was quite a time.
So how long was the progression from when you first started noticing symptoms to where you became quadriplegic?
It was August of 1999, and then January of 2000 was when I stopped having like any function.
Wow. So that was a pretty quick progression in 6 months.
Yeah.
I bet you probably went to quite a few doctors. And what were they saying about what was happening?
Well, I wish I would have known you because all my labs were very, they couldn't find too much wrong with me. There were a few things that were really off, but it didn't really match. So if you needed 5 check marks for MS, I'd have 4, or Guillain-Barré, I'd have, 3, so there was quite a mystery. And they didn't really know. It wasn't meningitis. It wasn't a traditional infection per se. And so they weren't really very helpful. They just were like, here's some pain medication, and
wow,
good luck.
Wow.
So
I'm sure that probably impacted your family too. I mean, you're in school, right? You're 16, and then your family's dealing with this, not knowing what's going on. How did that change any dynamics within the family or, school?
Yeah, my family looks a little different, and I'm the youngest of 5 by a lot. Like my oldest sister and I are 19 years apart. And we have the same parents, but I was like, the 4 of them are regularly spaced. And then I was like, oh, whoops, we didn't even know we could still get pregnant. So both my parents were retired by the time I was in high school. So they were already home with me. Obviously, the days looked very different, and my mom and my dad cared for me exclusively. And I couldn't tolerate any noise or any stimulation. My nervous system was fried. So they couldn't cook in the kitchen or open the garage door or run the vacuum, like things like that with me in the house. But I also couldn't move really. So it was a very tricky time for them. And my mom, would make 3,000 trips up the stairs to give me supplements and juices and all these kinds of things that we were trying after we heard, we don't know what's going on. We kept looking. My parents were very like dedicated to the idea that I was going to get better. And
Right.
in that moment, I was not. I was like, if this is how it's going to be, I'm out of here. Like, just let me die, And but my parents and my family were always like looking for other therapies or other specialists that could help me. And we went to just so many, and some doctors would say it's all in your head, when they couldn't match up all the symptoms.
Minimize it, right?
Yeah, and sometimes people would say, well, looks like you had some sort of infection, but after we had started doing a lot of alternative therapies and nutrition and getting at root causes, they said we had gone to the hospital again, done all the tests, and they said, well, it looks like you had a virus and now it's just the damage that remains. So then they sent me to an intensive physical therapy inpatient situation where I was doing therapy all the time. The other tricky thing was now they call it POTS, but they didn't ever say that then. But I couldn't, like, if someone sat me up or if somebody helped me to raise my head, I would pass out. I would be so dizzy that I would not remain conscious. And so I remember that was my first assignment in the inpatient hospital, was to like raise the bed and keep having a conversation and not pass out. Like, that was where we started.
Tougher than it sounds.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also remember like the day that I could sit up in the dining area with all the clinking silverware and the really just super tough paraspinal activity, like having to activate my core and sit up was really hard. Like once I was getting there, once I could sit up, it was like that. It's like running a marathon for me. And the conversations and just my brain having to track all those things. And I remember after doing it for the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing this. I'm getting better. This is so exciting. The small wins were just big in my mind. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
when you've had that progression, and it's almost like a rebirth, I would imagine, with that lack of ability to do much of anything on your own.
Yeah.
What when you started on that healing journey, what were the first things that started to dissipate for you?
Well, I had a migraine for about 10 years. And the dizziness was beyond functional. So I think to be able to sit up and not pass out, like, that was really helpful. So probably that. And then as I mentioned, I was having like seizures and just that excess neural discharge. And so I think that started to get better as well. But about 11 months after this all started, like at the end of the year 2000, we found integrative manual therapy, because in the inpatient PT situation, I was like back into athlete mode, right? I was pushing myself. I was like, okay, we're going to do this. And they were offering me lots of great PT and OT and helping me, find my way in that realm. But my body needed more. It needed to heal the root causes, not just push through. And so I did actually progress to using a walker.
Okay.
During that summer. And then my body was like, yeah, can't do it anymore. Like the dollar's been stretched too far. And so I actually became more quadriplegic. I wasn't fully quadriplegic. I could kind of like flop around a little bit.
Right.
But I was not very functional. And so we were continuing to look for different solutions. And then at the end of 2000, we went to this clinic, and it was integrative manual therapy. And they were helping me provide that relief that I needed for my organs and my spinal cord and my nervous system. So that's when I really started to get better. And the tension on my circulation and like the dizziness again was like the first thing to need support and to be cleared in order for me to move on. And I think our bodies have a hierarchy of importance. And
Yep.
if we, you know, stub our big toe, it's not that big a deal versus like our heart, our lungs, and our brain keep us alive. We can do a lot of things without a lot of other things. We can remove our gallbladder, our kidney, your spleen. But if you don't have a functioning nervous system, heart, and lungs, then you're not going to last too long. And
Right.
so I think that's where I needed the support. And so that's where I got that. And then I was functionally able to walk. I remember walking pretty quickly after I got that support. And the main therapist there was Sharon Weisselfish Mateo, and she's since passed away, but she's the developer of integrative manual therapy. And she worked with me a lot, and she had me start swimming, which was really, I hadn't thought of that before. And I could remain horizontal. I didn't have to like stand up, you know, and I could start to build some muscle back because I was totally emaciated from like very athletic to skin and bones, basically. So I was actually swimming a mile before I was actually
incredible
too much. So she was like, just get in the pool. And it was so fun because it was like, I could move without that pressure on my spinal cord and my heart. So it was really such a fun time for me to be able to try and reach a goal. You know, I would just, I think I swam half a lap the first time, or just didn't even swim, just kind of floated. And then it would just add a little bit each day. So my function came back faster than like the organ repair and the nervous system repair. And that took quite a bit longer. And the pain took longer as well.
So I know because of this journey that you've been on, you actually became an alternative healthcare practitioner and started integrating this into your own practice. You know, what was the training like for this? And, you know, what is entailed with integrative manual therapy?
Yeah, as soon as I went to that first clinic and they're like, oh, we think we can help you. And I found that spark of hope again. I was like, wow, I want to do that for other people. I want to bring that hope for them. And so I started taking classes in 2002, and they have a school program, or had a school program, and that's a 3-year program. So I did do my undergraduate at CU Boulder. And then I did the 3-year program after that. And that you learn so many different ways to get into the body, and you learn a lot of diagnostics about how to pick, you know, do you want to go into the body through the door of the liver? Do you want to go into the body through, like, you got to get more drainage? Are they in shock? Are they stuck in like a fight, flight, or freeze mode?
Right. So
there's a lot of different ways that you can support somebody, or it could be like an primary emotional response, and they might need to, like with your specialty in tinnitus, you know, might be like, what did you hear or what didn't you hear? And they might be stuck there at a really young age, or, you know, could be anything. So that training was very comprehensive and very intense. And then you know, the 3-year program ended, and then you went right into the advanced classes. So it didn't end at 3 years. And I spent 20 years, you know, trying to take every class I could. And I took other modalities and became certified in a few other things. So I'm a lifelong learner, Dr. Leithseier, and I just love the body and how amazing it is. And when you give it the resources that it needs, it has that innate ability to heal.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's what's so wonderful about alternative therapies is we aren't separating the body into individual pieces. It's how everything works synergistically and systemically across everything. So we have to be lifelong learners because there's so much that there's no way you can ever stop learning and ever be, you know, an expert in what you're doing. Now, you know, is this something you integrate for yourself on a daily basis or with your kids, you know, just to kind of keep their health up?
Yeah, absolutely. My daughter actually wasn't feeling 100% on Saturday night, and she and my youngest son are going to a camp this week, and I really wanted her to be able to go because he likes to be with somebody. So I was like working on her and helping her immune system be able to deal with that challenge and open up her drainage pathways. And she's actually really cute. She'll be like, Mom, can you teach me something? And I've been homeschooling them. And last year I taught them in a group of kids an anatomy class, and bringing in, different ways that we can think about our anatomy, but also learning about our different systems in our body and how we can care for them. And one of the girls broke her arm, and she had to go get x-rays. She had to go get an MRI actually. And she had a lot of anxiety, and her mom told me later that she was like, I'm going to do the breathing drill that Alison taught me.
Wonderful.
And to bring my nervous system back and out of fight, flight, or freeze into rest, digest, and heal. And she was able to do it. So I love teaching kids, and I particularly love teaching moms because then they teach their kids. So it's been really fun.
I think that's, really what we're lacking is, as adults, we become very reactionary and we wait until our bodies are too far gone. And then the struggle to health and healing is much longer.
Yes.
But if we're able to step back and teach the kids, and I know when we just were talking before we hopped on the call here, that you had mentioned that you really love working with the moms and kids because then you can help heal, but you're also you're instilling how to achieve this from a young age with kids. And the better we're able to do that with children, then the easier it's going to be for them to not ever get to the point that we got to by being overtaxed in our system.
Right.
And I think you had mentioned as well that you were very athletic and, were always involved in a ton of activities. And especially as life has progressed, I find that kids are definitely overstressed and overrun. And, we don't learn how to sit back and read our bodies because we're too busy doing all of this other stuff. And we really just need to sit, not with the TV on, not even reading a book. Sometimes you just need to sit and say, where is my body tight? Or looking back, and I know you said you had mono before you started really that downhill progression. Would you classify yourself as having been stressed just with your activities and the competitions that you were putting on yourself with others? Do you think that impacted your journey at all?
Definitely. I think my unwillingness to yield to anything other than perfection was certainly a component. I was like very committed to being a straight A student, and I was playing 3 sports, in high school, and that was my go-to.
I think so many people have been there. I'm much more of a perfectionist now than I was at that age, but I think we've all experienced that or have had parents that have really pushed us harder than we probably needed to be pushed at certain ages in our life. When someone works with you, how does that look? How do they get a hold of you? What's the process for working with you? What can they expect?
Well, I have several different avenues. So I do distance sessions. I have a 6-month group program that helps you retrain your nervous system to have more flexibility and to be able to move between the fight, flight, or freeze and the rest, digest, and heal. And it goes through the whole body and gives you techniques and approaches for being able to release pain and chronic areas of pattern illness. And there is a lot about the nervous system, but there's also a lot with teaching you how to relieve your organs, bring more space there, bring more drainage, bring more support.
Interesting.
So that's something that I'm really excited about. And that is what I did with that is I was like, okay, when COVID happened and no one could see their practitioners, I saw a lot of people slide backwards. And I was like, I have tools for people at home that they can use at home. So I wanted to create something, and I kind of was looking at what are the common denominators that I do on everybody. If they have cancer, if they have low back pain, if they have headaches, like what does the body typically need? And so that the program was born out of that, and like wanting to give tools to people for not just the 6 months that they're in the program or, the time that they're with me, but for life, and that they can teach us to their kids, their neighbor, their grandparents, and they can make a positive impact on their families and their health. I also do have a free Facebook group that I help teach people weekly in there. And I have an in-person practice that is pretty full, but there's a lot. I have a few gals I'm training, so I'm helping to bring people up so they can see those guys too.
Awesome.
But it often looks like, and I'm sure you have the same profile, where they've gone everywhere else and they haven't gotten results, and someone told them about me. So that's typically how it goes. And then a lot of times people say, you really just connected a lot of dots for me, that I've had these random symptoms, or I was told that they were random, and actually they're all part of, the gallbladder meridian or the lymph system or something like that. So I love to validate and encourage and listen and, be helpful as far as like helping people put together the pieces and then give them the tools to do that.
So what they're learning from you, they can take forward and use for the rest of their lives, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Are there any if you could give someone like just a 1-second thing of, this is probably the easiest thing to kind of just keep your body in balance. Do you have anything like that that's like a go-to, that's just a real quick for, like that girl that you were telling me about before, like what did she do as far as just keeping her body in check?
Yeah, I often will teach somebody a breathing drill, because when we are stuck in that fight, flight, or freeze, and we've had a lot of extra stress the last few years. So the majority of people are pretty stuck in that sympathetic mode, that fight, flight, or freeze gear in the nervous system. And so the breathing is a really nice back door to the nervous system, because if you are taking deep breaths, you're telling your brain like, hey, it's okay, we're safe. Versus if you're holding your breath, if you're breathing really rapidly and shallowly, that tells your brain like, you must be running from a lion right now. You should probably secrete a lot of stress hormones and stay in this fight, flight, or freeze. So I like teaching people breathing drills, because it can quickly like bring them into a place of coherence where the nervous system gears are balanced. And there's so many great breathing drills, but even just putting your hands on your lower rib cage and like pushing your hands out and activating the ribs, like moving your ribs. So many people talk about moving your diaphragm, moving your stomach, but they kind of don't move their rib cage. Right. So I like you can use a band, like a TheraBand, and tie it around your lower rib cage,
so you can feel it,
and kind of give that resistance and bring that awareness to that part of your body that actually does move. And it can have a pretty profound effect on pain and like range of motion. If your rib cage isn't moving, your shoulders might be hurting, your neck might be hurting, your low back might be hurting, your mid back might be hurting. So it's like a pretty high payoff drill that people could try. You could try it right now and see how that feels. But the nervous system, balancing the nervous system and finding ways that work for you, because what might work for you, Dr. Lexi, or me might not work for Susan or Cheryl, so it's definitely an individual process of finding out what does your nervous system like and what can help bring you back into balance. So I like helping people find that for themselves.
So before you get started with the client, when they reach out to you, I know I personally don't look at diagnosis. Someone may give me a diagnosis, but to me, all a diagnosis is a group of symptoms. The diagnosis means nothing, as far as what I'm going to do clinically with somebody. Do you base your therapy off of their diagnosis? Do you listen to what they're saying, or do you? So how do you evaluate where you need to start with each person? Is there a process that you follow?
Well, what's so interesting is you could have 5 people that have MS or cancer, and it's the same diagnosis, but they all came to it a different way. And so I think that it's really important to, like you said, listen. I think there's a very deep skill set of, like, if you and I took a class in Braille, at first when we felt the bumps, it wouldn't mean anything to us. But with the integrative manual therapy training, like that is sort of like the Braille class. And so I can feel someone's body and notice what's happening in their system and what needs attention first, what's covering up other things. So I just listen with my hands and my ears and my eyes. And so through the evaluation, I get a lot of information, and then I kind of make a little plan from there. And that plan changes. I might have someone come in and I thought, oh man, I would love to do this on them. And then the next time it's actually an emotional release, not ankle mobility that we're working on.
Right.
So I just show up and see what's going to happen. I'm open to
it's going to change, right? And as you're moving energy and releasing things, obviously that's going to change during the course of the therapy as well.
Yeah.
So this sounds amazing. I think it's a great way to integrate so much of what's going on. And, although you work with a large segment of the population, both female and male and kids, you really love to work with women, mothers. I think that's great, because we just need to teach the kids better resources and tools to have in their toolbox going forward.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned something that you do with your clients, which is trying to get them to sit for 5 minutes. And I think that is so powerful. And as a culture, we're really used to checking out, not checking in. Like self-care is not a glass of wine and Netflix. Like that's actually not solving any of your problems. And I think it's very hard. It's very countercultural to shift that even for yourself and be like, well, what do I do? What do I need right now? And how do I even ask? And how do I even sit with the answer? How do I listen? Right. So I think that's like the checkout versus check-in is something that is so pivotal for what we're both trying to do and help equip people with.
When I look at my journey into meditation, at first I really struggled. I tried, I always wanted to be one of those ones I could just sit there, and I thought, oh, I'm too busy. My brain is just, this was way back when, but I was like, I'm just too far advanced. I have so much going on. I wish I had the time I could just sit there. And the odd thing is when you sit with yourself, so many things come to you, and your body has its own innate ability to heal. And when you learn to sit, not only will things that you need and stressors in your daily life go away, but your body's going to tell you where you need to focus anyways. And so I think it's really important to do that and just integrate a variety of techniques. One thing that you and I had talked about earlier was that there's not always a best or worst type of thing to integrate, and that we want to expose people to all sorts of modalities, and each one is going to be beneficial for everybody out there. And I think this would be fantastic. Like you said, it's a tool in the toolbox. You can share it with other people. It's, something that can be done. But it doesn't mean that anything that we do, what I do, is the end all to be all. But when you start learning different ways to listen and to heal your body, you're going to be in a greater state of health going forward. And the possibilities are endless of what you can do with this. I would imagine, like you said, there's some emotional release with some of this as well. Probably, tight fascia, where a lot of emotions and things are built up in the body. So that a lot
of that cellular level release, a lot of times it's very old, a lot of trauma comes up for sure. Yeah.
And I really have enjoyed learning about this. I think I might have to set up a time to try it myself. That rabbit hole I'll go down. Is there any takeaways that you want to give any of the listeners?
Yeah, I think we say we're too busy or it's too much money or whatever our excuses. And I think that what I want to share with people is that your body's worth fighting for. And this is what we got. We get this body, this mind, this spirit, and it's important to nourish and care for, not just for the moment, but for the quality of life and the ability that we can have to show up for others or serve our communities or our families. And we can't really do that when we're, on our back.
And one thing I always try and hit home with, and I'll probably do, I'll do this on every podcast, but when we look at the population as a whole, 5% are considered sick, which means they've been diagnosed with illness. 20% is healthy, but the other 75% were functional. And, maybe you struggle to get up out of bed in the morning, or you don't have the energy, or you have that mid-morning slump where your back always hurts, and I kind of watch people, and I'm one of them sometimes, that just I always have to wobble because if I stand straight for too long, my back starts to hurt. These are not normal things. Yeah. Our bodies should not have to do that. And living functionally is not the same as living optimally. And I want people to live their life to the fullest. So little things that they can do to improve their lives, well worth it.
Absolutely.
So now, how can anyone get in touch with you if they're interested in working with you?
You can go to my website, which is inner-restoration.com. And there's links to get in touch with me. There's links to hop into my Facebook group, and you get a free video when you sign up to just give you a little guided process of how to even start to train your nervous system and rebalance. So I love sharing that with people. And then I have classes, I have lots of things that you can check out. And I actually have a free challenge coming up in August. So people can sign up for that too and get an idea of what's going on.
Fantastic. And I'll include all of those links for your Facebook group and your website on the information when I post everything. And I would absolutely love to chat with you some more in the future. I really appreciate you taking the time today to come on and share your story and how you were able to heal yourself and all the changes that you're able to help other people with.
Well,
we
thank
appreciate
you, Dr.
what
Leithseier.
you do.
I loved connecting with you. Thank you so much for having me, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.